The Formula E season opener has been postponed. We'll explain all the details. The very unfortunate story about Nikita Mazepin has another development today, and a lot of people outraged. And NASCAR, another potential celebrity athlete joining in the Cup Series. All of that right here, Grid Tonight. Welcome everyone to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. Joe Santiago here along with Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. We have a lot of news to discuss, and this is our final 2020 program of Grid Tonight. We will be back January 6th, 2021, 2 weeks' time. As I mentioned, we got a lot of news to cover, including Formula E season being postponed so far, IndyCar Long Beach season finale, where we're going to start with the unfortunate news from Formula One involving Nikita Mazepin.
Yeah, it was some unfortunate news, but probably shouldn't be surprised. And earlier this morning, Haas F1 released a statement announcing that Nikita Mazepin would stay with the team and race in 2021. The statement said that the situation was handled internally and no further comments shall be made. And this resulted in a vast online response. Many expressed disappointment, anger, and especially women who felt less valued, and sadly for some, relieving the horrific trauma of being a victim of sexual assault. So, Joe, to start off tonight's program, here's my first question. Are the feelings of disappointment, anger, and less valued justifiable?
Yes, it is definitely justifiable considering the nature of the story. And we encourage all our viewers in the chat room, share with us what you're feeling and thoughts of on this horrific story. Because it's very upsetting to think that all year long, we race as one. We want to make the sport better. And here's the biggest test for Formula One, the FIA, the teams, and we handled it already. We're not gonna tell you how we handled it, and we hope everyone moves on because we're not gonna talk about it. That is just completely the wrong way to handle it. Compared to how NASCAR, Chip Ganassi Racing handled the Kyle Larson incident, that is I would say a model of how to handle such a disastrous PR move that occurred on Monza Madness. Haas could do more. The FIA, Formula One, they could do more. They could investigate Lewis Hamilton for wearing a T-shirt about a case that spurred the We Race as One movement, the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020, to just sit on the sideline for such a heinous crime that occurred off the track involving a race car driver and just sit there, do nothing. It is just very disturbing and sends all the wrong messages.
Well said, Joe. Well said. I couldn't have said it better myself. And absolutely, all of those feelings of disappointment, anger, and feeling less valued, they're absolutely justifiable. And it's extremely disappointing that Haas F1 didn't really do anything to handle the Nikita Mazepin situation in a way that I'm gonna say would be morally fit. And in this situation, it seems like they're choosing the funding that he's bringing to the Haas organization instead of doing the right thing, which I believe in this situation would be to terminate him, because what he did to that woman, and including all of the other behavior that we've seen, it's just not worthy of being a Formula One driver, in my opinion, and it's extremely disappointing, but not surprising. Like I said, that Haas F1 would do something like this. And moving forward, it'll be interesting to see if, with the outrage of the "We Say No to Mazepin" movement, if we're gonna see Formula One or the FI itself step in and say we're not gonna let Mazepin race, or we're gonna suspend him indefinitely, make him go through sensitivity training, just like the point you brought up with NASCAR and Kyle Larson. As soon as Kyle Larson said the N word, he was suspended indefinitely from NASCAR and fired from Chip Ganassi Racing. And NASCAR made Kyle Larson better himself by going through sensitivity training and also doing some work in communities of color. So I think if they're not going to get rid of Mazepin completely, then the next best thing to do would be to suspend him indefinitely and try to make him at least try to attempt to become a better person. Because based on what I've seen from Nikita Mazepin so far, it hasn't been good at all. And like you said, Haas F1 said it handled the situation internally, and we know specific HR actions are confidential. Could Haas have done more to show that the team actually took the situation seriously, many believe that Nikita received a simple slap on the wrist.
It does appear that Nikita received a simple slap on the wrist. As you mentioned, when it comes to HR, there are some things that are confidential. This is a case of an employee employer. It is very unique as it is such a public nature where the employee is going out there racing week after week as one of the two faces of the team. The other face, of course, Mick Schumacher next year. We saw how NASCAR handled it. They made it where, okay, you're suspended, and it's not just suspended until we say you come back. It's suspended, you do all these actions. Chip Ganassi Racing fired Larson pretty much the very next day, especially after all the sponsors condemned everything that Kyle Larson had done that day. So definitely, Austin could have easily said, we handle it internally. We're going to make Mazepin go through courses to be a better person, to be a better voice representative of Haas. I know we always talk about second chances like Kyle Larson. In this case, my concern is with Mazepin, is he really going to be a better person going forward? Or are you just thinking, okay, I better not get caught and engage in some further disturbing conduct? I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping he really does change. But it's still very unfortunate that we're all having to go through this, discussing this. It still feels like he's getting away, especially considering the funding he has. We do have one comment from the chat room. Edward said Mazepin's conduct is shameful, but it seems Haas has only decided to punish him internally because he posted it on social media. Feels like his behavior is widely accepted in F1. And that again goes to what we were talking about. This sends the wrong message that this behavior is accepted in Formula One. And we all know when it comes to motorsports or any sport, this behavior should not be accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. That behavior is from Nikita Mazepin, whether it's coming from him or anyone, whether it's in racing, on the football, basketball, anywhere, it's unacceptable, and that's not how women should be treated at all. And it's really sad that that Haas F1, Formula One, FIA haven't really done anything here. And I've been talking about this with some of my friends about the We Race as One initiative. And right now, especially after what Haas said that they would not be talking about the situation again, that they handle it internally. Hashtag We Race as One seems like an absolute joke at this point, because if we race as one, they would have handled this the correct way, which is to show Nikita Mazepin that you cannot get away with this. And to me, it seems like he's getting away with a horrible act here, and it's super unfortunate that it seems like the FIA cares about looking at Lewis Hamilton's Breonna Taylor shirt a lot more since they conducted an investigation over that, but not conducting an investigation over this. It seems like their hearts are in the wrong place. And another silly situation when you compare to this situation, when Formula E driver Daniel Abt lost his drive at Audi because he put in an esports ringer to take his place when people really thought it was him, and he lost his drive for that. And when you compare the Daniel Abt situation and the Lewis Hamilton T-shirt to the Nikita Mazepin situation, all of that is harmless. And then with Mazepin, that is really serious, and it's sad to see that you get that people will look at you and question you for wearing a T-shirt that causes no harm at all, and for hiring an esports ringer. And Joe, this is really unfortunate that those two incidents received a lot more serious attention than the action that is actually more serious. And Nikita Mazepin should not be allowed to get away with this. And with that being said, how disturbing is it that we are going to see Mazepin in Formula One, regardless of everything that he has done?
It's very disturbing considering, especially women that have been victims of sexual assault, sexual harassment. Every time they're going to show his face, it's just a reminder of all the things they went through in their personal case, the things that we all went through with this case as well, and is not going to do this sport any good. I mean, unless Mazepin was to really just come out and say, I'm horrendously sorry for what I did, and starts using his platform to, man, we have to be better, I'm better. But I just don't get the sense that's happening, especially He deleted his apology. His Twitter account is blank. There's really not showing any signs of true remorse. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but just thinking about it, every time we have a Formula One race, we have the opening intro, the Formula One theme song. They show every single driver there. They're going to show Nikita's face there. If they still have the We Race as one, it's a bigger joke if we're going to have Nikita standing there. I just, it just absolutely, it just leaves me so shocked that here we are in this situation. Nikita's going to be racing. Seems like it's going to be one of those deals where they're hoping people will forget about, but I don't think people are going to forget about it. And it's really disturbing that we're entering 2021 like this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think people are going to forget about this anytime soon. I think the movement hashtag We Say No to Mazepin is just going to get louder and louder and louder and louder until something is done. And while Haas said that they're not going to discuss the situation anymore, I can guarantee you that this is not over. That this is that people are going to continue to get outraged, and then it's going to continue to get louder and louder, as I mentioned, and and then it's gonna Haas won't be able to avoid the noise anymore. Although they said that it's been handled internally and we're no longer going to comment on this matter. And and the longer Haas, continues to be like, yeah, we're standing by Mazepin, is I think it's honestly going to lead to bad things for Haas. It's already been a PR nightmare. Their public image is tarnished, and their reputation is just going to go downhill from here. Because when they say that we're handling internally, and Nikita Mazepin will race with us in 2021, they're in a way they're kind of saying that they support the behavior that he has done.
Yeah, it sends the wrong message saying essentially the behavior he has done and displayed, not that big of concern. Of course, with Haas, people are also remembering of how they had rich energy in that fiasco. And it just seems like maybe Haas, there's some question about the leadership in that team. Now, of course, our next story, there was a big development earlier this week, Formula E. Of course, the ABB Formula E season opener has been postponed due to the pandemic. There are new concerns about the new strain in the United Kingdom that have seen several countries introduce new travel restrictions and restrictions with the pandemic. In Chile, they have where all non-residents from the United Kingdom during the past 14 days are not allowed entry into the country. Of course, the United Kingdom is the base for about 6 out of 12 Formula E teams, as well as a bunch of drivers. With the strain, the Saudi Arabian government has suspended flights from the United Kingdom currently. Right now, that is sort of slated to be the opening round for the Formula E season. Now, of course, definitely encourage everyone for all Formula E news. Be sure to follow Formula E Zone. Jack and his team there definitely have all the information. Kobe, how huge of a setback is this for Formula E?
Oh, it's a huge setback, Joe. I mean, we really shouldn't be surprised that something like this happened. Since the pandemic situation is getting worse, and now it's the new strand, a new variant of COVID-19 is starting to sweep around the UK, and they've also discovered it in other countries. And we did get some new news today that they've discovered a second new strand of this coronavirus, and it's even more transmissible than the new one that you just mentioned. So we got two new strands out there that are more contagious, and for the racing world and the world in general, until we get enough people vaccinated, that is not good news. And I don't think this is going to be the first setback that we may see for Formula E and for other racing series all around the world, because with the pandemic, getting much worse right now, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And we saw NASCAR had to cancel the round in Fontana at Auto Club Speedway and replace with the Daytona Road Course, because the restrictions there in California are really tough right now, and California is in a dire situation. And if the pandemic continues to rage on well into 2021, we might see more setbacks for racing series all around the world.
It is going to be very tricky for all the motorsport series globally, even for the short tracks, local track promoters within the state, especially like if you mentioned California, they're still under really strict conditions here. I know here in Oregon, there have been some lifting of some restrictions. So they're talking about certain racetracks like Portland International Raceway, 250 souls are allowed on the premises. But definitely what makes Formula E really challenging, just about all their venues for racing is city circuits. Unlike NASCAR, IndyCar, where you have a lot of permanent road courses or super speedways like circuit area, whatever is enclosed, there's several points of entry. Of course, we're talking city centers. Yeah, they could put fencing up, but still, it makes it really tricky for Formula E and any series that are very dependent on street circuits. Do you feel, especially with 2021, they may start to look at we may have to run permanent circuits like Donington in Europe or other racetracks and sort of right now abandon some of the street circuits that we have planned?
Yeah, unfortunately, Joe, I think that might be the best case scenario because with street circus, you got to take time to set them up and cooperate with the people in the city that you're going to be racing in. And right now, with the pandemic situation, all the restrictions, shutdowns, and pandemic roaring out of control, I wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm Formula E now with all of my street races on the schedule. I think they need to go to more tracks like you mentioned, those permanent road courses like the Mexico City Prix at the track that's the home of the Mexican Formula One Grand Prix. That's a permanent, your traditional road course and tracks like that. I believe that would be fun. Like you mentioned, go to Donington, Brands Hatch, run the short course at Silverstone or short course at Monza, whatever those type of tracks, because it'll be a lot easier to run behind closed doors. Or if worse comes to worse, like the end of the last Formula E season, if you can do it, go back to Berlin.
Berlin, of course, for those unfamiliar, hosted 6 consecutive races. We worked Formula E Zone, Formula E Fest. That was a lot of fun considering the circumstances. I'd say that was definitely an option that you could look at, as well as the closed circuits as well, where they're away from city centers, easier to have essentially a bubble atmosphere for everybody. Now, of course, 2021 will definitely be following Formula E. Encourage everyone to check out Formula E Zone. Definitely, it has some of the great racing coverage and all the news from Formula E. That's a specialty. And of course, we're looking forward to when the season starts for Formula E, working with them for their season premiere.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Next, we're gonna look at some news that broke last week when it was announced that the Long Beach Grand Prix would become the season-ending event for the NTT IndyCar Series, creating a West Coast swing of Portland, Laguna Seca, and Long Beach. And many are assuming that pandemic restrictions will loosen up by the fall as we get more people vaccinated in the United States. In California, as I mentioned, currently has some of the strictest restrictions in the U.S. Portland International Raceway may now operate with 250 souls or less on the property. Is this the right move to ensure the future of the Long Beach Grand Prix?
Yes, it'll be really unfortunate if we went 2 years in a row without the Long Beach Grand Prix. Of course, one of the things I feel Long Beach, IndyCar, they have a really strong relationship compared to if it was a brand new circuit. I think if we were to see something like Nashville, a brand new race, be canceled, that might jeopardize the entire outlook of that. For Long Beach Grand Prix, I could see where if for some reason it just couldn't work in 2021, they had to postpone. 2022, I could see them again planning the Long Beach Grand Prix. But definitely, this is a smart move. This puts more time between where we are right now to the race weekend and Long Beach Grand Prix. And I think by 6 months from now, we'll have a better, more clearer idea about the chances of IndyCar racing at Laguna Seca, Long Beach, since they're both in the state of California.
Yeah, I do believe it was the right move to push Long Beach back towards the end of the season to ensure that we can potentially have it next year. And it was super unfortunate in 2020 we didn't get to see IndyCar race at Long Beach this year, and I'm sure it would be really horrible if we didn't have the event in 2021 either. 'Cause it would be crazy to go 2 years without the Long Beach Grand Prix, which is arguably IndyCar's second crown jewel race next to the Indianapolis 500. And we know Long Beach has a long history of racing on the streets of California. One of IndyCar's most special events. I know Jimmy Johnson looking forward to racing there since he's gonna be running the road and street courses with Chip Ganassi Racing. I remember once he told the story he how when he was a kid watching his hero Rick Mears race at the Grand Prix of Long Beach and how he dreamed that it could be him one day and I'm sure Jimmy will be really excited if they're able to run Long Beach next year. And with that said, there's always been a debate about a big event serving as a season-ending race. Mainly, you have drivers not going for the win, but they want to just have a safe result. Could this be the case at Long Beach as well?
That was a really good question. It's going to be really interesting. We'd definitely love to hear from our viewers. Tell us in the chat room what you think. Because in the past, we've seen this before. The season ending race, you're going to still have drivers going out there trying to get the win. But you might have two, maybe even three drivers trying to play a little safe. The points leader going into that event, they know, okay, a 12th place finish or better, I got this championship wrapped up. They may just hover around that 7th, 8th place, not go for the win. And this is something where it could devalue the race because you don't have everyone wanting to win that race. With that said, though, this is Long Beach. The history there, it is one of the big races in the IndyCar series. I still think you're going to see a lot of drivers going out there trying to get the win. There will be some drivers that are going to take it easy, be safe, just get those points, win the championship. But the big thing is, this is not a permanent move to move Long Beach as the season finale. This is just because of everything going on with the pandemic. Come 2022, if Long Beach is again back in April, May, I see you're going to have a lot of drivers going for the win. A couple of comments we'd like to share from the chat room. Definitely Joe. Great show. Thank you for watching, Joe. Be sure to like, subscribe to us on YouTube especially. And then Edward, Long Beach is a great track, especially with it being a street course. It means a lot. The mistakes are punished more harshly since it is a street course. It could lead to real drama in the title decider. Can you imagine, Kobe, if we had a really tight points bout entering Long Beach and somebody was to screw up, get taken out by going in the wall? That would just be, I think it will really add some new excitement to the season finale.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw with the Firestone Grand Prix on the streets of St. Pete. It was originally supposed to be the season opener in 2020. Then they had to postpone it to the season finale at in St. Pete. It was a lot more chaotic and a lot more intense than it normally is because at the beginning of the season, drivers still filling everything out, getting back into the groove of things. But by the end of the season, championships on the line. Drivers who don't have a contract for next year trying to show team owners what they can do, why they deserve a future opportunity. There was a lot on the line. And in the end of 2020 IndyCar season, I thought the Firestone Grand Prix was one of the best ones that I've seen in a very long time. And we all know Long Beach is, as I mentioned, very special event on the IndyCar schedule. And I think if it was to become the permanent championship round, I think it would become even bigger with a lot more on the line. And we've talked a lot about IndyCar so far, so let's talk about IndyLights now. And the 2019 IndyLights season was a little disappointing in terms of car count. We had 8 drivers who ran every single race, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic situation, the series was put on hiatus in 2020. But Roger Penske and the series have been working really hard to bounce back big time in 2021 by increasing car counts. And at first, that was plenty of outrage about the decision to avoid holding the Freedom 100 next year. And while it might be disappointing not to have the highly entertaining race on the 2021 calendar, we can smile about the positive of potentially having a more competitive Indy Lights field. Global Racing Group already announced that they'll be partnering with HMD Motorsports to fill 4 Indy Lights cars, and Andretti Autosport has committed to running 4 cars with Kyle Kirkwood, Daniel Frost, the retiring Robert McGinnis, Devlin DeFrancesco at Andretti's Steinbrenner Autosport, and that's 8 cars right there between 2 teams, matching the number of full-time drivers in 2019. And recently, Carlin Racing announced their Indy Lights program would return with 2 cars. Formula 3 driver Alex Peroni is going to be coming from Europe as he was confirmed to be the first driver for Carlin. And while there hasn't been any announcement on the second driver in car yet, so that's 2 entries from Carlin, bringing us up to 10, which is a improvement. And recently, Junco's Racing completed an Indy Lights test with 2 drivers. 2020 Indy Pro 2000 champion, guy with one of the coolest names in motorsports, Stingray Robb and Nate Aranda. If Junco's runs 2 cars full time, then we're up to 12. And also, don't forget about 2020 Formula Regional America's champion Linus Lundqvist, who absolutely dominated and ran away with that championship. and winning the title earned him a spot in the 2021 Indy Lights Championship. So, Joe, right there, that's 13 potential entries right off the bat. And despite losing the Freedom 100, does it seem like 2021 could end up being the rebirth of the Indy Lights series?
Absolutely does. With everything that's been announced already, we're looking at 10 cars for next year. We're going to have more entering. I think this is really going to be exciting. This is not only a big win for the Indy Lights, big win for IndyCar as well. You're going to have drivers coming to Indy Lights. They see the competitiveness and, of course, the opportunity to go into IndyCars, the Indianapolis 500. This is really big for IndyCar, Indy Lights, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Roger Penske has to be really starting to feel like, okay, this is going the direction we want to see, and we're making it better and better. And for the fans, this is going to make it really exciting. If you're going to a race next year, you're going to have a very competitive Indy Lights field. The NTT IndyCar Series, it's not as crazy as Formula E, but races could be just as unpredictable. So I definitely see this being a big win for IndyCar, Indy Lights. It's unfortunate they're not going to be running the oval, but I think that's just going to make it where everyone's going to really want to get into IndyCar and definitely someday be in the Indy 500.
Yeah, it is unfortunate we're not going to have the Freedom 100 in 2021, and hopefully he's just a 1 year hiatus on that event. I'd really love to see it come back in 2022, or maybe that's just going to be something that's going to be gone for good. Gone for good. Hopefully, it doesn't come to that. But 2021 is definitely looking up in terms of car counts. Mentioned 13 potential cars right there. Hopefully, it's going to be a lot more competitive all throughout the field than what we've seen in recent years in Indy Lights. And Road to Indy ladder system it's been a great tool to develop talent as the drivers progress their way up from the bottom all the way up to the NTT IndyCar Series, as the Indy Light Series is equivalent to what FIA Formula 2 is to Formula 1 on the road to F1 ladder system over there. And Joe, has come to my attention. We have a comment, and Edward says, Stingray Rob, you're going to support him for that name alone. Yeah, like I said, I think Stingray Rob certainly has one of the coolest names in all of motorsports.
I was muted. One of the more exciting names to follow, especially in the Indy Light Series. That is going to be a lot of fun 2021. And we encourage everyone to watch and be sure to comment whether you have questions, share your opinions, or plans for 2021 racing season. It's going to be a lot of fun. One of the things a lot of people are going to be watching because it should be pretty fun to see how everything goes. Santino Ferrucci and his 2021 plans. A couple of days ago, Santino Ferrucci tested a super late model at Caraway Speedway with furry race cars and NASCAR driver Kaz Grala. It has been reported out of Racer.com that Ferrucci is getting closer to signing a deal with Our Motorsports, planning to run at least 20 NASCAR Xfinity Series races next season in the second car, along with Brett Moffitt, who is a full-time entry there. With his IndyCar future in doubt and sponsorship woes at Dale Coyne Racing, Ferrucci has shifted his focus to pursuing opportunities in stock car by getting some practices in a super late model at Caraway Speedway. This should show you that Santino is serious about a potential switch to IndyCar.
Oh yeah, I think by getting some seat time here in the super late model at Caraway Speedway, it's showing me that Santino Ferrucci is really serious about this potential switch to NASCAR and stock car racing in general, because everything that Santino's been used to. You grew up in open wheel racing and in a completely different world from stock car racing. So I only think that getting more laps is going to help Santino switch come a lot easier. And while it hasn't been made official by Our Motorsports that Santino Ferrucci is going to be driving with them in the NASCAR Xfinity Series next year on a part-time basis, I think it shows you that this potential deal and situation is really starting to gain legs as Santino Ferrucci got some laps in a super late model at Caraway.
Getting some laps in. It's going to be really interesting to see him make this transition, especially open wheels, was racing in Europe, now Indy cars, and now it looks like he might be going to NASCAR. he is definitely going to be one of the drivers I think people are really going to cheer or not cheer in 2021. Do you think we'll see him run some super late model races on the side to get more seat time?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility here. Since it seems like he's going to be running at least 20 Xfinity races, won't be running for the championship as a whole. And since he's coming in from an entirely completely different discipline of open wheel racing, he's going to need as many laps as he can possibly get. And we've seen drivers in the past come over to NASCAR. Some have had success, some have not. And we remember when Juan Pablo Montoya came to NASCAR after he started off with kart, then went to Formula One, and then left Formula One to come to NASCAR. Montoya had some success and ended up winning some races on the road courses, and also had some great runs on the ovals as well. Dario Franchitti, he left IndyCar and struggled a lot in NASCAR. I think he only had one really decent run. I think it was an Xfinity race at Watkins Glen. Might have won the pole there. I have to check, but just trying to remember that off the top of my head. And Sam Hornets Jr. He came from IndyCar, switched to NASCAR, had a really tough time getting up to speed in Cup, and then dropped down, ran to Xfinity, and it was very competitive. So it's certainly possible for open wheel racers to switch to NASCAR and have a decent career. Look at Tony Stewart and everything that he's accomplished. Yeah, but I do think that it may be possible we'll see Santino Ferrucci run some other stock car races to get more experience. And Fury race cars definitely build some great super late models, so he would be in some good equipment if he decided to run with them.
Definitely it's going to be really interesting to see. We have another comment we'd like to share. I'm not a fan of Ferrucci, mainly because of his behavior in Formula 2 a few years ago. If we criticize Mazepin for his behavior, then we should treat Ferrucci as the same. Definitely, I would agree with you as well. For some folks not familiar, Ferrucci was in Formula 2, had some behavior issues, including on and off the track, issues with the FIA and some rules. So definitely is something where a lot of people, especially with the news today, have been talking about how Mazepin is being treated differently than Ferrucci. And that's why we might see some fans not exactly welcome Santino Ferrucci to NASCAR. One thing I think is going to be really interesting race to see is Santino Ferrucci in Martinsville. Of course, Martinsville, a lot of beating and banging. Seeing Santino in that race is really going to be interesting. Of course, he had some controversy after the virtual Indy 500 race, in which on the last lap on the main straight, he took out the leader trying to go for the win. So now he's going to be in a stock car in Martinsville. I won't be surprised if there's fireworks between Santino and another driver in 2021.
Yeah, and it's funny we mentioned Santino Ferrucci and Nikita Mazepin in the same program because both of them are arguably one of the two most polarizing drivers in motorsports. And before Mazepin's situation come along, it seemed like Santino was the most polarizing driver, especially after what happened in Formula 2 over in Europe and all of the controversy over there when he ended up getting kicked out of Formula 2 and immediately come over to Delco racing the race in IndyCar. The fans did not welcome him at all here over in the United States. And while a lot of the outrage about Santino has died down over time, there are still people who are still unwilling to forgive Santino for his actions. But I do think that Santino has dropped to number 2 on the list of polarizing drivers because I think for now Nikita Mazepin takes the grand prize there as the most polarizing driver in motorsports. And next, gonna look at a story from Adam Stern. He reported from the Sports Business Journal. He revealed that a surprise name is having talks with Front Row Motorsports about the number 38 Ford Mustang vacated by John Hunter Nemechek. And Stern said the driver in talks with Front Row is Anthony Alfredo. In 2020, Anthony Alfredo ran part-time with Richard Childress racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. In limited starts, he showed plenty of potential and that he's capable of winning Xfinity races and possibly competing for the championship if he was given a full-time ride. And Alfredo ran 19 out of 33 races with 2 top 5s, 9 top 10s, and an average finish of 12.6. In 2018, he ran full-time in what is now called the ARCA Menard Series East, finishing 5th in the standings. In 2019, he ran part-time 13 races with DGR Crosley in the NASCAR Truck Series, only scoring 2 top 10s. And as you could have probably expected, this potential move was met with mixed reactions. Some people thought Alfredo would be moving up to Cup too soon, while others think he needed to make a move when he could, since RCR announced that Mike Snyder would be running for RCR full time in Xfinity next season. And despite all the potential that Anthony Alfredo has shown in a part time role at Richard Childress Racing, if Front Row Motorsports ride becomes a reality, Do you think Alfredo would be moving up to Cup way too soon?
That's a really good question. On paper, it looks like he's moving up too soon. But the big thing, of course, is look at the situation in the Xfinity Series. Snyder got that full-time ride. There are only so many seats available that are competitive in Xfinity. When it comes to the Cup Series, just the ability to start a race there is huge. And of course, we know with that 38 team, if they could get a good race, particularly Talladega, Daytona, the restrictor plates, there's potential for a big surprise victory, top 5, top 10 finish. I mean, we all remember Brad Keselowski, the number 51, James Finch, surprise winner at Talladega. We've seen that 38, that 34 contend for wins and get wins with David Reagan. So it's easy to say he's moving up too soon, especially when you look at him on paper. But definitely, I feel, considering the way the seats are lining up in the Xfinity Series, you got an opportunity to race in Cup. This could be a one-time, one-season deal. Might as well go for it. Because at the end, if you don't go for it and just things don't work out, you'll be questioning yourself throughout 2021.
Yeah, as Daniel Ricciardo says, sometimes you just gotta lick a stamp and send it. And it seems like this is exactly what Anthony Alfredo is doing here. And you brought up a good point on paper. It does look like that Anthony is moving up to Cup way, way too soon, considering that he's run part time the past two seasons, and he's only run like one full time season. I believe it was in the Cars, the Cars Tour, and then it was the ARCA Menard Series East, and then part-time in trucks and part-time in Xfinity, but didn't run every race to compete for the championship. So certainly I do understand why people would believe that he's moving up too soon. But he had a real good situation in 2019, able to run the competitive equipment at RCR. But Mike Snyder's running full-time, and I'm not sure if they're going to run a second car. But but Alfredo, he definitely showed in Xfinity in those races that he can go out there, be competitive, compete for wins, and I think he's one of the rising talents of the sport. And going to a mid pack team like Front Row Motorsports, I don't really think that's necessarily a bad move, because you can if you go out there, you get get some experience, some seat time in a low pressure situation. It might not be such a bad thing for Anthony Alfredo. And if he goes out there and beats his teammate, looks like it's going to be Michael McDowell once again, although that hasn't been confirmed, goes out there and beats the Cup Series veteran in his rookie season, that's going to make Anthony look really good, and he might be in line for a more competitive Cup ride in the future, or if there's an opportunity like John Hunter Nemechek to go run for a team like KBM in the Truck Series, compete for a championship, it might open up another door. So I think if Anthony Alfredo has an opportunity to go to the Cup Series here, and if you decide to bet on yourself, go ahead and do it, because later on you might be kicking yourself. And I see you showed up a question while I was talking there, said asking, do you think Ryan Preece moved up too soon? And well, when I'm looking at that, I'm not really sure if Ryan Preece moved up too soon, but I do know in 2021 there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to perform. And it's going to be year 3 for him at JTG Doherty Racing, because they expected Ryan Preece to take a huge jump in 2020, but we just didn't see that at all. It was really disappointing year for him. Had a lot of bad luck, and they just didn't have all of the runs that they really expected to have this season.
Yeah, that team didn't have a whole lot of good runs at all. Ricky Stenhouse, of course, didn't have exactly a great season. It's going to be really interesting to see. Definitely want to thank you for your question, because that is a really good question, especially as we talk about drivers moving from Xfinity or even the Truck Series up to Cup. Now, one of the big things that came out involving a potential Cup team is Spire Motorsports. Adam Stern from Sports Business Journal. Boxer Floyd Mayweather, the Money Racing team, is in the process of starting a partnership with Spire Motorsports. Now, Spire already announced that Corey LaJoie is driving the number 7 Chevrolet, but nowhere on the driver of the number 77. With partnership with Chip Ganassi and Hendrick Motorsport, Spire intends to be a bit more competitive and build a more competitive program going forward. NBC Sports broadcast and retired crew chief Sully Letarte is even being brought on as a consultant to the team. Going back to Mayweather's team, certain claims that a potential deal will include back in Spire in 2021 with the goal of Spire's second charter to run a full-time entry in 2022. We know it could be tricky for new Cup teams to acquire a charter and get locked into all the Cup races. Is this a smart way for a money racing team to start building a Cup program?
Yes, this is a really smart way to get into to get into NASCAR Cup Series and get the program rolling. Because as we know, there's only 36 charters out there, and it guarantees you into every race on the Cup Series schedule. And if you're a new team and you're trying to start off as an open team, you're not guaranteed to make all of the races, and it might be a little bit tougher to sell that to sponsors and to get your program going the way you want it to. So I think if the money team does get things going. I think it might have been a year or two that we've known about the money racing teams existence, but we haven't really seen a lot from them. And maybe they've decided that it's time for them to make some noise and to start moving forward with the program and partnering with Spire, since they have two charters here. We know Corey LaJoie is going to be in one car, the number 7 Chevrolet, and we don't know who's going to be in the number 77 yet. But since Spire's going to have two charters in 2021, I do think that the money team, this could be a great way for them to break into the sport, because they'll be able to work with Spire, see what it's like to run in the NASCAR Cup Series, and then 2022 you'll have a charter already for your car, and you can focus on building your own program outside of Spire.
Yeah, start building that program out, make it good, make it competitive, and it's really interesting. Of course, we see Michael Jordan enter NASCAR. Here comes Floyd Mayweather. Really interesting to see if we're going to have more athletes come in from different disciplines into NASCAR. We've seen this before. I could recall Dan Marino had a team in the Cup Series, Brett Favre. Teams that those partnerships didn't really last long. But now we're entering a different era of motorsports, especially with the charter system. For those not familiar with the charter system of NASCAR, if you have a charter, you are guaranteed to start every Cup race. This is not seen in any other series, really. Formula One, yeah, we know the teams are going to show up and race there because you have to be registered. But this is something where it has changed, where in the past you need a provisional or be top 35 in points. Now it's just come in, start your business, a race team, and you're assured a spot in the race with this charter.
Yeah, definitely. And next, we're going to look at a story that broke early this morning in Europe. Aston Martin Racing confirmed the end of its factory GTE Pro program in the FIA World Endurance Championship, effective immediately. And the 2019-20 FIA WC season was a successful one for Aston Martin, and then with the number 95 Aston Martin of Nicky Tim and Marco Sorensen winning the GTE Pro drivers title, while the sister car, the number 97 Aston Martin of Alex Lynn, Maxime Martin, and Harry Tinknell claimed the GT Pro Class victory at Le Mans. And Aston Martin's departure means only Porsche and Ferrari remain in GT Pro, so only 4 cars. Moving forward, Aston Martin plans to remain in sports car racing, but focusing on its customer racing programs in GTE, GT3, and GT4. And over in IMSA, where they run the same GT platform, the GTLM class only has Corvette racing committed to run the full season, while BMW only has the Rolex 24 confirmed at this point. And as they're evaluating all of their options, we don't really know if BMW Team RLL is going to complete the full season, the Rolex 24 only, or just the Enduros. So very worrisome. We'll at least have 5 cars for Daytona with Risi Competizione for Daytona, and outside of Daytona, we might just have 2 Corvettes, and that would be very, very disappointing, very worrisome. So with that said, do you think we are nearing the end of the current GTE platform?
It doesn't look good for the current program, especially with this news. Caught a lot of people by surprise. We know sports car racing, especially with LMDH being introduced, it seems to have a lot of interest. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with this class going forward, especially if we see more interest at LMDH. Does that mean this class might soon be something of the past, or could we see something where this class is going to be changed up for the future? It's really going to be interesting to see what happens. But I know definitely the news this morning caught me by surprise.
Yeah, and I hate to be so negative here, but I think GT Pro and GTLM, I think that platform is just gonna die out soon. It doesn't really seem like there's much interest in running the factory programs there, and you know a lot of manufacturers are becoming interested in LMDH, LMH, and if you're running a highly expensive factory program in the prototype category, is it worth running a factory GT Pro GTLM program? And that's one thing that remains to be seen, but we've seen the situation coming for a while now, especially in IMSA when Porsche announced that they were gonna stop their factory program over there, and we did see the previous season with Ford pulling out as well. So right now only have two manufacturers in the WEC with Porsche and Ferrari, just four cars, and then Corvette only two confirmed full-time entries. Risi Competizione for Daytona, so that's three, and then BMW is going to be at Daytona, and we don't really know what it's going to look like after Daytona with the BMW program. And it would be such a shame if the only full time entries we see in IMSA's GTLM class is going to be Corvette racing. So I think that the GTE GTLM formula is going to be over soon, and they won't, and IMSA and the WC won't have any choice but to make the main GT class the GT3 platform, kind of like what we see in GT Daytona, and maybe they'll do something where they have a GT3 Pro class and a GT3 AM class to split up the thing, so you can still have your All Pro driver lineups and your Pro Am driver lineups as well. And next year, we'll see the Racing Point Formula One team transition the organization into the Aston Martin Racing Formula One team, and Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll will be the drivers. As we know, you have to pour millions and millions of dollars to build a competitive Formula One program. Do you think Aston Martin Racing's new Formula One program played a factor in the departure of their factory GTE Pro team?
Could be. It's really interesting, especially with the pandemic and everything going on. Of course, we know that has had an adverse effect economically worldwide. So it could have easily been a number of factors with the pandemic, entering Formula One, pouring into millions. And then, of course, it's Aston Martin. They want to go out there and be competitive. They don't want to be Aston Martin, the backmarkers with Haas and Williams. I do see where this some of it could be a result of pouring in the extra resources into Formula One. I also think part of it too is just the state of racing, especially with the economy and everything that has affected with this pandemic.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pandemic certainly played a factor as well, and maybe Aston Martin's new Formula One program as well. Yeah, so and we all know with the pandemic that racing organizations all over the world have lost millions and millions of dollars, and in order to make up for it, you're gonna have to cut some things to save money and to try to get everything back on track. And that's really what happened with the Porsche GTLM program. Porsche lost a lot of money, and in order to make up for it, they had to cut their factory program in the IMSA GTLM class, and it's super unfortunate. But as we know, we've seen it this entire pandemic. We've seen some unfortunate situations occur in racing, and Aston Martin Racing had a really good run in GT Pro with their factory backed effort. And as we know, Joe, me and you both, all good things must come to an end. And now it's time to end our program with some quick takes.
The big news involving JD Motorsports and their 2021 lineup. A couple of days ago, JD Motorsports announced Jeffrey Earnhardt will return to the NASCAR Xfinity Series full time in 2021, driving the number zero Chevrolet Camaro. Colby Howard will run a part-time schedule. Ran a part-time schedule in 2020. He's going to run full time in the number 15 Chevrolet Camaro. JD Motorsports will total had 4 vehicles in 2020. The driver of the number 4 and the number 6 have yet to be revealed. Most recently, Jesse Little drove the number 4, but is moving to BJ McLeod's number 78 in the Xfinity Series, and Ryan Vargas finished the season with the number 6 TikTok car.
Rising young talent Daniel Dye will run the full 2021 ARCA Menard Series East season. Ford Ben Kennedy Racing driving the number 43 Chevrolet, with the team forming a technical alliance with GMS Racing. Dye plans to compete in the Red Eye 50/50 and all super late model races at New Smyrna Speedway. In addition, the team plans to enter 4 Blizzard Series races, the Rattler 250, the famous Snowball Derby, and other super late model events with the number 43.
A familiar returning back to the Rolex 24 Hours next month in the GT Element class, the number 62, Rizzi Campesoni and his Ferrari are coming back with a strong driver lineup consisting of James Collado, David Rigon, Jules Grunot, and of course many others that are going to be participating with this team. Very excited to see the Ferrari back in GTLM.
Yeah, definitely the number 62 Risi Competici Ferrari gonna have a strong lineup with James Collado, Alessandro Perguidi, Davide Rigon, and Jules Gunon. Yeah, really excited to see that. And we have another Rolex 24 lineup with IndyCar driver Rinus VK making his debut in the Rolex 24, sharing the number 81 Dragon Speed Orca '07 Gibson LMP2 car with Ben Hanley, Rob Hose, and Garrett Grist. Dragon Speed plans to run one car in the Michelin Endurance Cup races at Daytona, Sebring, Watkins Glen, and Road Atlanta.
One of the big things, of course, Bristol next spring, the Bristol Dirt Track is going to see even more action along with NASCAR, the Dirt National Super Late Models. They're going to have 4 dirt races going on there that have been added to the 2021 season. That includes Outlaw Late Model, Dirt Cup, UMP Modified, Super Dirt, Big Block Modified, and the NOS Energy Sprint Cars.
According to Chris Wright from thecatchfence.com, JR Motorsports NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Noah Gragson will attempt to make his NASCAR Cup Series debut in February, replacing the retired Brendan Gaughan and driving the number 62 Chevrolet Camaro in the Daytona 500 for Beard Motorsports. And since the team does not have a charter, Gragson would have to qualify on speed or race his way in through the Daytona duels.
Super Formula saw their season finale at Fuji Racing. Naoki Yamamoto finished 5th last weekend. That was good enough to win the 2020 Super Formula Championship over Ryo Hirakawa by 2 points. Yamamoto is now a 3-time Super Formula champion in Japan. Nick Cassidy ended up 4th in the standings during his final Super Formula season. In 2021, Cassidy will be a full-time member of the Formula E Envision racing team.
To all of our YouTube viewers, we want to share with you a special public service announcement to be aware of a scam happening on YouTube. Recently, there's been a plethora of comments on YouTube videos leading to websites that have no relation to the content. The latest scam is when someone is pretending to be the creator of the video on YouTube, posts or reply to a comment asking them to contact them, and those scammers get your phone number and further issues occur. While we haven't seen this scam yet on any of our videos, we highly encourage everyone to be aware of such a scam. Grid Network will never ask you to contact us through a phone number listed in the comments below. Our contact information, you can find that at gridranking.com. We accept direct messages on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts as well. Any comment we make or any creator makes on their video is highlighted to verify that that is the creator of the video. We will also never ask for any monetary support that is different than our Patreon page. Patreon is the only place where we accept that monetary support. Please be aware and safe when surfing YouTube, and we encourage everyone, please comment, like, and subscribe to our channel, Grid Network. Special thanks to Colin for supporting us all of these months on Patreon. Colin, on behalf of everyone at Grid Network, we hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and also check out Pablos as well. The link is in the video description. You get 10%. You get 10% discount for all Grid Network viewers. And on Saturday, the day after Christmas, December 26th, we have a brand new episode of Life on the Grid with NASCAR tire changer Brianna O'Leary joining us and musical guest Ben Balavet.
As we close today's program, we of course do this because we love sharing our passion for motorsports. From the Grid Ranking, World Motorsports League, and the Grid Network, bringing the news and program for the motorsports community. This includes the feel-great stories and the heroine stories. It has been difficult to report on Nikita Mazepin the past few weeks, not only because it's an unpleasant, disturbing, and troubling topic, but also because of the lack of consequences it appears Nikita Mazepin received. This reopens the wound of victims of sexual assault and harassment. Most of those victims, they don't report what happened to them because they're afraid they won't be believed or nothing will be done. Haas Formula One is letting them down today by allowing Mazepin to race next year. Formula One is letting them down by not standing up to their "We Race as One" catchphrase. The FIA is failing in its mission of making the automobile and motorsport industry a welcoming and safe place. All the silent people under the FIA, Formula One, and Haas are laying down everyone by allowing this to happen. We at the grid, like many, are disappointed by the lack of action. Disappointed that the wealth and privilege means immunity for bad behavior. And sad that many are hurting and are upset while one person is being harbored from his action. We stand with everyone in saying we say no to Mazepin. Thank you. We'll see you January 6th.